evening.
Good evening. On the outer plane must only be done as an outer activity of an inner urge. In other words, even to the simple things like marketing and shopping, these need not be human activities humanly performed. They can be our inner life outwardly expressed. In order to be perfectly harmonious, they must be the inner life outwardly expressed, and this can only be if the outer is performed as the direct result of an inner urge. In other words, whenever we are called upon to do anything, write a letter, go to business, make a decision, our wisdom should be to have this few moments within so that we may feel the click, the contact that assures us that the presence is going with us on this mission, or going before us to clear the way of all obstacles. There is nothing truer than I can of my own self do nothing, except the fact that the Father within me can do the works. But the Father within only does those works as we release it, as we make way for it to take over our experience. There is a deep secret in the spiritual life, and that is this: God knows nothing of our pains. God knows nothing of our lacks or limitations. God knows nothing of our discord. And so there is no use of going to God for any relief from these. If God had any awareness of disease or sin, God would care for it long before we could ask that it be done. It is only because in the realm of the real that these discords of sense have no existence that God can do nothing about them. God can know nothing about them. They have no existence in the realm of the real. That does not change the fact that we suffer from them. The unreality of evil in the real doesn't lessen our pains or remove our lacks or limitations, because to our sense of things we suffer. The beginning of wisdom is the realization that these conditions do not exist in spirit, and therefore freedom from them comes not from seeking relief from God. Freedom comes through seeking God. There is no such thing as freedom from discord. There is no such thing as freedom from sin, from false appetites or desires. There is no such thing as freedom from poverty or concentration camps. There is only freedom. Freedom in God, in spirit. Now, the understanding of this changes the nature of prayer. Let me go back a moment to the subject of power. Our instinct in prayer is to turn to God for God's power to overcome, to heal, to reform. We seek in prayer, ordinarily, the power of God to remove these ills, whether physical, mental, moral, or financial. In that we have erred. God is not that type of power that overcomes discord, that removes fears, that heals diseases, or removes or reforms sinners, or restores wasted bodies. God is not that kind of power. God is the power of being. God is infinite being, self-created, self-maintained, and self-sustained, infinite, eternal, harmonious being, and that is the nature of God power. The nature of God power is being, perfect being, forever being, eternal, harmonious, joyous being. To turn to God, expecting God to be some other kind of power, interferes with our attainment of harmony, of freedom, of peace, of joy, of safety, security. Never go to God for safety, for security, for peace. Give up the desire for these things. There is only one legitimate desire: to know God. To know Him is life eternal. It doesn't say a word about having to do anything after you know Him. Acquaint now thyself with Him and be at peace. To know Him is life eternal. Not to know Him and then through some power or favor have peace, joy, and dominion given to us. No, no, no. Having Him is the joy, peace, power, and dominion. To stand in the presence of God, to stand in the conscious realization of God's presence, is to be in possession of infinite harmony, peace, and joy. No one could ever want more than the presence of God, because the presence of God is all-inclusive. The presence of God includes within its being a state of freedom. Ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. And God is truth. Ye shall know God, and God shall make you free. The knowing of God is the freedom. Now, let us come back to Brother John for a moment. John, of the Gospel of John, chapter 4. Then cometh he to a city of Samaria, which is called Sychar, near to the parcel of ground that Jacob gave to his son Joseph. Now Jacob's well was there. Jesus, therefore, being wearied with his journey, sat thus on the well, and it was about the 6th hour. There cometh a woman of Samaria to draw water. Jesus saith unto her, Give me to drink. For his disciples were gone away unto the city to buy meat. Then saith the woman of Samaria unto him, How is it that thou, being a Jew, askest drink of me, which am a woman of Samaria? For the Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans. Jesus answered and said unto her, If thou knewest the gift of God, and who it is that saith to thee, Give me to drink, thou wouldst have asked of him, and he would have given thee living water. The woman saith unto him, Sir, thou hast nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. From whence then hast thou that living water? Art thou greater than our father Jacob, which gave us the well, and drank thereof himself, and his children, and his cattle? Jesus answered and said unto her, Whosoever drinketh of this water shall thirst again. But whosoever drinketh of the water that I shall give him shall never thirst. But the water that I shall give him shall be in him a well of water, springing up into everlasting life. Probably it seems strange that Jesus was wearied. He just never got so absolute, I guess, as not to be wearied once in a while. There was no sin in being wearied. The blessing was that he knew how to refresh himself, and where, and from what source came the fresh inspiration. And then we have reference to a water not drawn from a well, but drawn from his inner being. Now that is the water, that is the refreshment, and that is the inspiration that I meant when I said that from now on we should undertake nothing without drawing from that source, without a contact from that source. Whether it is the simplest experience of daily living, or whether it is the most profound, the source must be spirit in order that the result be harmonious. Now, the woman saith unto him, Sir, I perceive that thou art a prophet. Our fathers worshipped in this mountain, and ye say that in Jerusalem is the place where men ought to worship. Jesus saith unto her, Woman, believe me, the hour cometh when ye shall neither in this mountain nor yet at Jerusalem worship the Father. Ye worship ye know not what. We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. But the hour cometh, and now is, when the true worshippers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth. For the Father seeketh such to worship him. God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. I do not know the meaning of that passage that salvation is of the Jews. I don't know whether or not that was merely said in the same way that we often believe today, many, that Christianity is the only way to God. Probably because in those days the Jews were the only people worshiping, at least the only people in the area of the Holy City and even across into Europe. They were the only people who worshipped one God. And perhaps it was because they were worshippers of one God that they were, or considered themselves, the only ones able to bring salvation. Whether or not that's true, I do not know, because that passage itself is not known to me. But here we come to our message of tonight. Ye worship, ye know not what. But the hour cometh, and now is, when the true worshippers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth. God is a spirit. They that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. Now, the second step of our unfoldment tonight reveals that we must not go to God for anything except spirit. We must not expect God to know our human need, nor to supply it. But in the filling of ourselves with spirit, we interpret spiritual substance, spiritual life, spiritual law in terms of our everyday need. That is how the healing even of the body takes place, not because God knows of a sick body, not even that God knows of a well physical body, but that as we rise above the concept of the physical into the realization of the spirit, everything on our level of consciousness is transformed into the higher showing forth of harmony in our very language. In other words, God speaks to us in spirit, and we interpret that in terms of a healthy body or a healthy purse. But going to God for a healthy body or a healthy purse would be like going to God and asking Him to speak to us in English or French or German or Hebrew. It does not lie within the realm of possibility for God to select a language to speak in. The language of God is spirit. And how we hear it represents our interpretation of it. And so it is the language of spirit. The language of God is spirit, but so is the body of God spirit. And so is the wealth of God spirit. And so is the relationship between individuals and nations spirit. Now, as we seek God in spirit and find spirit and truth flowing in and through, and as our consciousness, that becomes interpreted on our plane of existence as harmony. For instance, we seem to be 100 people or so in this room, and we are from the human standpoint. But looking at us from that same human standpoint, each of us has a life of our own with problems of our own, language of our own, backgrounds of our own, and all virtually strangers to each other. And yet, we know that to say that would be judging by appearances, because we know that the very something that brought us together in this room was a spiritual bond, and no one can see a spiritual bond. We have come from all over the United States and Canada to be here together. Were we drawn here by anything visible, physical, material? And you all know the answer. We were drawn here by the power of the Spirit. And we were drawn here for one purpose, to imbibe of the Spirit. And yet here we seem to be in physical embodiment. Yes, the Spirit acted, and we translated that action into airplane or train travel and arrived here. The Spirit acted to draw us together. Now, the same Spirit that acts to draw us together is forever in operation to draw us unto our own, whether our own in human relationships of home or business or nation. There is an invisible activity going on that would draw us to our rightful employment or our rightful marriage or our rightful city or our rightful nation. But you see, before we came here, we all were praying, each of us. And what were we praying for? We weren't praying for, let us say, Joe Goldsmith, and we weren't praying for the infinite way. We may not even have known them. But we were praying for light. We were praying for truth. We were praying for spiritual guidance, and now see where it brought us. It brought us here together in an infinite way message. In other words, our desire for God, for light, for truth, brought us humanly to this book, set of books, person, teacher. But let us remember this. If when we prayed for guidance, in our family relations, business relations, national relations, if we pray just as hard to know who to vote for on election day as we prayed for guidance in finding our spiritual teaching, we would always be led to cast our ballots in the right direction. If we sought spiritual guidance in every activity of our experience, not translating them into the human, leaving them right there as we have done with this guidance that brought us here. Just give me light, spiritual light, truth, unfoldment, revelation, illumination. Why, we would not only be illumined to find our teacher or teaching, we would be illumined to find the right dress or the right suit or the right apartment. Because there's no difference in these things in the scale of God. God is fulfillment. Remember that statement. God is fulfillment. God fulfills. The presence of God fulfills. God cannot come to you and bring you to your correct spiritual teaching and not come to you and bring you to your correct employment or your correct home. God cannot be divided. God is not divisible, nor does the activity of God include one thing and leave out another. God could not reveal itself to you as health and then leave out supply. God could not reveal itself as supply and leave out health. Ah, but you say, my experience proves that just that very thing happens. I sometimes pray and get my health and do not get my supply. I sometimes pray and get my supply and do not get my health. You pray amiss because you're praying a divided prayer. You are praying for things, or that the Spirit reveal itself only in certain directions instead of that God reveal itself as light, the fullness of light, the fullness of illumination, the fullness of truth. God's garment is whole, complete, perfect. When God places the raiment, the mantle about our shoulders, it includes our entire being. Perhaps you have already read Leave Your Nets. And perhaps you have been, as some have been, puzzled by the last chapter, the robe. There is nothing mysterious about that chapter. It states very clearly in there what the robe is. It is your consciousness of truth. The brown robe is when your consciousness of truth is only that of the initiate, only that of the beginner on the path, a little awareness of truth. As your consciousness of truth deepens and becomes enriched, the color changes. It becomes a deeper blue, perhaps, purple, gold, ultimately white. The white robe of Christ, which means the full and complete realization of Christhood. The robe isn't a robe, physically, and yet the full Christ consciousness envelops one just like being clothed in a robe. And sometimes you can see that robe being draped about your shoulders. You can see yourself enveloped in it subjectively, but so completely. And you will know then that the robe, the spiritual robe, cannot be divided. And so, to pray aright means to worship him in spirit. Worship him as spirit. God is the spirit. Then don't go to God and expect a miracle. Don't go to God and expect a healing. Don't go to God and expect safety or security. Go to God expecting God. Go to God expecting the Spirit to descend upon you, the descent of the Holy Ghost, the Christ, the spiritual awareness of his presence and perfection, harmony, completeness, and watch how it appears outwardly as the harmonies of your daily experience in simple things like finding a parking place just when you're ready for it. In simple things like finding a seat ready on the airplane or train when they were crowded, or a room at the hotel. In simple things or in the very deepest experiences of our lives, you will find completeness and perfection by seeking the Father in spirit as spirit. Don't seek to divide the garment. Don't pray for health or wealth or safety or security or peace on earth. Pray only that God reveal itself as truth. The same kind of prayer that you must have been praying to bring you here to this room this week. Just imagine, let us say, the day before you ever heard the name of the infinite way. And so you couldn't know what to pray for or what teaching to pray for. And so all you could do was turn to the Father and say, "Oh, Father, give me light. Reveal truth to me. Reveal harmony to me." And then the next day somebody came along and offered you a pamphlet or a booklet that ultimately brought you here. You see that you were praying in spirit, for spirit, as spirit. You were praying in truth, for truth. Then it interpreted itself to you in this teaching. If there is ever a higher teaching, you will find it. You won't be stuck here on this level unless you keep believing that you must be loyal to Joel or the infinite way. I hope you'll never get that feeling. Just keep right on praying for light, for truth, for more wisdom, for illumination. And for a while, it will hold you, keeping you going, probably with me. But if the day comes when there's somebody available better for you than me, believe me, it will lift you right out of my aura into that which is right for you. You don't think I would hold you, do you? No, not any more than I would permit anyone to hold me. Only God. Only God. God, give me God. Give me spiritual wisdom. Give me spiritual light. And if that would result in taking me out of the infinite way, I'd lead you out. Be glad to. Only God is important. Only God is truth. All that we do is reveal such truth as it comes through to us and in us. But, as you have already seen, your prayer for truth has led you this far. Now continue that and seek the whole garment. Keep seeking truth, light, revelation, illumination. Worship him as spirit, and let the whole garment descend upon you and reveal itself then, not only in teaching or teacher, but in supply, in home, in joyous relationships. Now there is a bond between us here, a spiritual bond that draws together and will hold us together as long as we are of one mind. As long as we are on one plane of spiritual consciousness, we will be held together in this spiritual bond. Now, as long as that is true, there will flow back and forth between us a bond of love, a love that will be spelt with a capital L. And it will make it impossible for us, even on the human plane, ever to deceive each other or even attempt it. It will prevent us ever from doing wrong to each other. That is the bond that exists. We do not have to declare, I will be honest. We have to take no vows. We don't have to sign any papers or registers to be honest with each other or generous with each other. No. There is a bond between us that does that for us. It makes it impossible for us to go in any other direction. But now listen. That bond, that tie, that spiritual tie, is not limited to us in this room. That spiritual tie binds us to every child of God on the face of the earth. It is no tie to human beings or mortals. That is why, in the recognition of this truth, those who persist in remaining on the human or mortal level ultimately drift out of our experience. We draw unto ourselves those to whom we are bound, our spiritual brothers and sisters. But those who live and insist on living on the mortal or material plane sooner or later drift away from us, and sometimes our heartache comes in trying to hold on to them. The Master knew about this when he said, leave mother, brother, sister, leave all for my sake. He did not mean to leave those of the spiritual brotherhood or sisterhood. Oh no, he said, who are my brothers and sisters? Ye, my disciples. In other words, our spiritual family remains intact. All who can meet together on a spiritual level of love, joy, peace, trust, they will be bound together from now unto eternity, sharing forever with each other. There you will find a spiritual form of communism. It's a beautiful form, too, because we will never be called upon to share anything with each other of ourselves. We will never be called on to give up anything that we possess to share with another. And they will never be called upon to give up anything they possess to share with us. Everything that we share will come from this well at Sychar. Everything will come from the spiritual fount, and it will be of God. And instead of depleting us, it will be like the Master's experience of multiplying loaves and fishes and having 12 baskets full left over. Every time we share, in the recognition that we are not sharing that which is our own, that we are sharing only that which comes from the Father, we will find ourselves with baskets full left over too. There is no such thing as a depletion when we share or spend from the infinite source. There is only a depletion when we take from our personal resources. It is just like the lifting of a weight. If you measure your muscle and then lift a weight, there is only a certain amount of weight that you can lift. If you can forget your muscles and just realize the source of your strength, you can lift any weight necessary for you to lift at any given moment. In other words, we can meet any demand made upon us, physical, mental, financial, as long as we do not err in believing that it is my strength or my mentality or my wisdom or my pocketbook. As long as we understand that we are reaching into the well at Sychar, into that well that springs up into life everlasting, we can share and share and share. It makes no difference whether we're sharing words pouring out, ideas of truth, or whether they're dollar bills. It's just a question of how we get used to the idea of drawing forth from that source. What counts is that we understand God as spirit and draw on spirit for spirit. Do not think of God as spirit and then draw on God for supply or for health or for parking spaces or for companionship. Don't do that. If you understand God as spirit, draw on God, pray to God for spirit, and then let that whole garment be made manifest in the completeness of our experience. Then, if we need a word of truth, that word of truth will appear as rapidly as we may need it. If we need a dollar bill, it will appear as rapidly as we may need it. If we need this, if we need that, it will appear as we need it, as long as we do not desire it or pray for it. Ah, isn't it marvelous? God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. Can you see now why we have so often failed in what we call making our demonstration? Oh yes, we have looked to God, a spirit, for almost everything in the world but spirit. Now we must get back. We must get back because we have had a revelation. It's really a tremendous revelation. It's all bound up in that one little word, is. Is. God is. God is a spirit. Well, do you know what spirit is? I don't think so. I don't. None of us knows what spirit is. There isn't anything at all that can be measured by your experience or mine. It isn't anything that can be measured by your wisdom or mine. God is a spirit. If we ever do understand it, and I'm sure we all do in some few moments of our existence, it is only when we have transcended the entire human experience, when we have transcended even the realm of spiritual thinking, then we may catch a glimpse in those exalted moments of a spirit. Otherwise, we have no knowledge of spirit, and so we have no way of defining how spirit shall appear to us. Do we know what truth is? No. The master was asked, what is truth? And he just turned and walked away. What is truth? Could you answer? No, you couldn't any more than I could. What is truth? We know lots of statements about the truth. We have read much about the truth, studied much about it. We have even had unfoldments about the truth. But the nearest that I have come to truth itself is that little word is. I know the truth is. That I know. I only have to look out upon this world. and see the miracles of even what we call natural things, nature, a blade of grass coming up through a stone, a tree growing out of a rock. I know the truth is, even though I do not know the nature of truth. But when I pray, and pray that truth reveal itself to me, I become aware of some activity or form of truth. I become aware of some harmony that is the direct result of the activity of truth. Let us see how we can explain that. You all know the process of planting a seed in the ground. If you could look down into the ground upon that seed with a powerful glass, in time you would see that seed begin to, you would see a movement in the seed, and it would break. And pretty soon you would see sprouts coming forth from where that seed had been planted. A bit later, you would see those sprouts shooting up through the earth. And still later, they would become branches or plants of trees. All of this that you would see would be an effect. Never would you see the power that was causing the seed to break open, or the sprout to take root, or the shoot to come up through the ground. Never, never would you see the power that was causing all that. All that you would see would be the effect of that. And that's what happens to us when we pray the prayer of spirit and of truth. We never see God itself. We never witness truth itself, but we see, feel, or witness the activity of that truth, the effect of the activity of that truth. That we witness. We witness the increased health, the increased strength, the increased supply, the increased love between each other. We witness all that, but that is the effect. The cause itself remains spirit or truth. Now, in the moments that we are praying in spirit and in truth, we are not praying for a specific effect, because we are not looking to God to become a power to do something. When we pray the prayer of spirit and truth, it is the prayer almost of resignation, relaxation, as if we had no knowledge of what the effect would be. We are just resting in this glorious feel of the divine presence. We rest in this calm assurance. Strange thing to rest in, a calm assurance. We rest in a gentle presence. We rest in a still small voice. Just think, we're not seeking anything. We're not praying for anything. We're not desiring anything. We're resting in an atmosphere of soul. That's our prayer now. A resting from desire. A resting from seeking. We're resting in the soul. We're not seeking release from something. We're seeking release in something. In the soul. If only we feel this release in the soul, we will find on the outer plane there's nothing to be released from. If we find our release in spirit, in truth, if we find it possible to rest in Him, then when we open our eyes, we find that the discords of sense have disappeared. You see, they never existed as actual realities, but only to our sense. But we lost our sense as we found our rest in spirit and in truth. The idea that I'm trying to convey, do not find it simple, is that the moment we go to God with some expectancy of it doing something, we are missing the way. If we go to God just in the sense of resting in God, then we are praying more nearly aright. It's that expectancy of something that is the barrier between us and our harmony. It is as if we were expecting God to be a power to do something. God is a power, but God is a power that is doing it. You see the difference? Instead of expecting God now, in the moment of our prayer to do it, God is and always has been doing it. Therefore, it is only necessary for us to rest in God. Now, since we do not know the nature of God, since we do not know the nature of truth, we do not know how to pray. We're told then that we must let the Spirit bear intercession, bear witness for us. Let the Spirit make intercession for us. Let the Spirit pray within us. In the Infinite Way writings, I have said there that actually we never pray. We merely get into the attitude for the reception of prayer. It is God who prays, really. It is God that prays in us. How do I know that? Because when I've been very still, very quiet, very deep in the center of being, I've heard the still small voice, not as a voice, just as a state of awareness, and I knew that God was revealing truth to me. So the Word of God was coming from within me to me. I wasn't doing it, I was receiving it. I was becoming aware of it. In other words, I was a witness to God's activity in me. Now that, to me, so far, has been the highest secret of prayer. When I could be still enough just to be a witness to God's praying, God's uttering itself in me. God uttered the Word, didn't he? And the whole world appeared. God uttered the Word. We didn't think thoughts. God uttered the Word. And so to me, up to this moment, that has been the highest form of prayer to which I have attained, an ability sometimes to be so still within, so absent from the body and present with the Lord, that I was able to become a witness to God revealing itself, God uttering itself. And sometimes that has come in actual words, and sometimes it has just come in an awareness, sometimes it has come in a feeling. Tonight I was, earlier this evening, I was a little bit desperate about tonight. And I had a tussle with the Father. But this time the voice did come. And it said, pray for spiritual things. And the moment it said that, this came to my thought. This, ye shall worship him in spirit and in truth. And so the whole thing was revealed. And you see then, I was listening and God was praying. Do you see that? Can you follow that? Can you grasp that? That we have to come to some place where sometimes through desperation we just know that nothing we can think is going to do any good, because it has been said that God's thoughts are not our thoughts, and who by taking thought can add to a stature 1 cubit. And if he cannot by taking thought do the least of these things, why take thought for the others? So why take thought about praying for things that we think we need, at least things that we desire, when all the time we know better? There isn't any of us here who hasn't been in this work long enough to know that that form of prayer is not correct. Even when we were praying for some demonstration, we have known that that is not the way. There is only one way. God is a spirit. You see, that is why this thing of praying in holy mountains or praying in that temple in Jerusalem is not the thing. Not that it wouldn't be just as effective to pray in a mountain or that holy temple in Jerusalem, but the holy mountain nor the temple are necessary, nor is any edifice necessary, nor is any lack of edifice necessary. The secret lies in this, that the place whereon you stand is holy ground, and that may be in prison, that may be in a hospital, that may be in an insane asylum. Who cares where it is? The place whereon thou standest is holy ground. That's the place to pray, right where you are and right in the circumstance where you find yourself. Don't believe for a moment. This is one of the tragedies that comes to my desk. One person will say, you know, if I just was sure of next month's rent, it would be easier for me to pray and to meditate and do the right. And the next one will say, oh, if only the sharp pain would leave, then I could meditate, then I could get quiet, then I could do it. And the other one says, oh, if only my house wasn't a bedroom, if only this family would let me have a quiet sanctuary to pray in. And you see, that's sad, because the place whereon thou standest is holy ground. And it makes no difference if you're in the midst of any kind of a hell, physical, mental, moral, financial. You will find that that is the place right there and then to pray. But of course the secret is to pray as spirit, and in truth.